This video is in a series of videos that describe how to attach models to units. We call that composing a unit. The previous video, we looked at attaching a cognition model, and we used the command of that cognition model, the locate command, to actually place our platform model. So we're picking up where we left off in the previous video, and we're going to talk now a little bit more about commands and the order of execution of commands. So we have, in this particular unit that we've been working on so far, we have two models attached to it. We have a platform model and a cognition model. And we've already talked about the roles of these two models. In the last video, we talked about the fact that cognition models define commands that can be issued, or we say initiated, from the user interface here in Forge. And these commands go to the human cognition model of the unit, and that cognition model in turn controls the equipment models that are attached to the unit. This locate command, for example, gives is used to specify the initial position of a platform and its heading as well. So we're going to add a one or two more commands to this unit. And in order to do that, the next thing we need to do from what we've done so far in the script is actually add a start statement. So we're going to put the start statement right here after the initial initiate statement. And that start statement is going to show up in our command editor. So we see the locate and we see the start statement. When you generate a unit from a pattern, that start statement and a lot of other statements are already going to be there, but in this set of videos, we're building a unit from scratch. So we put that start statement in there, and now that we have the start statement, we have the ability to add some additional commands to the unit that we couldn't add before. If we are trying to add a command above the start statement, we could only add definition commands. So this is a list of the commands that can be specified for a unit prior to the unit actually starting in the scenario. The start statement specifies the time at which this unit will become active in the scenario and its models will start executing. By default, the start statement specifies that the unit will become active in 0 seconds relative to the scenario start, which means it's going to become active as soon as the scenario starts. You can delay that by putting in a time here, or you can actually specify an absolute time relative to the scenario clock at which the unit should become active. Or you can just say, I actually don't want this unit to be active. I'm going to keep it inactive. So even though he's fully defined, you'll say, no, he's not going to do anything. So you can basically turn him off. After the start statement, we can add any of the definition commands. So definition commands can be added after the start statement, but there's additional commands, and there's two of them here: move in formation and move to waypoint. And those are executable commands, and they can only be added after the start statement. So you don't really need to know which are definition or executable. The command editor is context sensitive. So if your current command is above the start statement, it won't show you commands that can't be added there. And then if you're on the start statement or later, it will automatically show you the other commands that can be added. So I'm going to say move to waypoint. And the command is red, as you know, because all the inputs are not valid, and it requires you to specify a speed. So I'm going to put in 5 miles per hour, and it automatically gives me a waypoint value that's slightly offset from the position of the locate statement. So I hit accept, and so now I've got two commands. I've got initial location and then move to waypoint, and I'm going to zoom way in on here. I can hit play, and that you can see it's moving very slowly because it's only moving at 5 miles per hour. But we're going to, so those commands are working. So with this, I can now talk about command execution. And some of this was talked about when we talked about scenario configuration. But now that we're building a unit manually, I can give a little bit more information. The commands above the start statement are executed when the unit configures. So as you already know, when we configure a scenario, we configure all the meta objects. We wipe the unit clean, we take all the models that are attached to the unit and we destroy them. And then we go, after all the meta objects are configured, we configure the units. When the units are configured, the first step in unit configuration is to compile this script. And that script is generated into executable statements after it's been compiled. And then after we have those executable statements in memory, we then start executing the statements. And so as a part of the scenario configuration, we'll just go down in the order that the statements are listed. We'll go down and execute these statements. So this employee statement will clone that particular meta object and attach that platform model. Then we'll go to the next statement that says to clone a cognition model meta object. So we'll do that and attach it. And then we initiate a command that is defined by this cognition model. And we didn't type these commands in manually. We never type in initiate statements manually. We always do that from the command interface. So we added the locate command. So the process of configuration, since this statement is above the start statement, it'll initiate that command. And then it does some other things internally, but when it finishes executing all these commands and it gets to the start statement, it stops processing statements. So all these statements are processed and executed prior to the scenario execution. In fact, they're executed every single time the scenario configures. And when it finds a start statement, it stops processing. And it won't start processing commands after the statements after the start statement, which are almost always just initiate statements. So this move to waypoint command, which is the same as this initiate move to waypoint, it won't process those until the unit actually starts. So in this case, it processes since this unit starts as soon as the scenario starts, it will process that statement immediately when the scenario starts. But after it processes that statement, it will not continue. If there are more statements after this, it wouldn't go to the next statement until this statement finished. So I'm going to illustrate that. I'm going to go back to these commands and I'll put myself in edit mode here. We'll zoom in. I'm going to go make this particular guy move a little bit faster. We'll make it move at 30 miles per hour. And I'm going to take this waypoint and I'm going to put it right here. And then I'm going to copy that waypoint and put in another one. And I'm going to put it over here. So we have two commands now, the move to waypoint and another move to waypoint. You can see that if it executed all the statements right after start, that it would basically skip this first move to waypoint statement. So the way it's set up, this is what's called a motion executable statement. So these are executable statements. They can only be entered after the start statement. And this is a motion executable statement. More generically, it's a statement that is flagged when the cognition model developer created it. It was flagged to say that when this statement is executed, the processing of statements should pause. It should not go to the next statement until this particular command has finished. And the way that Flames is designed, and you'll learn about this as you're developing models, in particular platform models, this command gives a command to the platform model to tell the platform model to move to that particular waypoint. And we don't go beyond this statement until the platform itself sends a message back to Flames through a return value that says, I have finished the command, the last command that I was given. And when that command is finished, that return value goes back to the Flames engine. Flames engine goes to this unit and says, okay, this command's finished. I'll now go to the next command, and it will execute whatever that next command is. If there are commands after this statement that are not pause statements, they're not, and usually we use pause processing statements on motion commands. it will execute that statement and immediately go to the next statement. So depending upon the type of command, it may pause processing, it may not. But I'm just going to go ahead and let me go ahead and save, and then I'm going to run. And you're going to see here that it will go to that first waypoint, and then it won't actually get the command to go to the next waypoint until that command's finished, and then it goes to the next command. And overall, the flow of processing is each command in the order that it's listed, but when it gets processed is different depending on the type of command and where that command is located in the list of commands. We sometimes refer to this as the task for the unit. So there are ways to make commands get re-executed. You can put loops and things in here, but we normally don't do that. That's very rare that we'll do that. Normally, there's just commands in there listed in order. There are some commands that, like say an orbit command, that is not defined for this particular platform, but you may stay in an orbit command for a couple hours. And while you're in that command, the unit may dynamically do a whole bunch of other things and then go back to orbit. So these are not the only things that the unit is going to do and that the cognition models are going to do. This is just the overall mission or task that we have given to this unit as a part of the overall definition of the scenario. What will happen afterwards, actually happen, depends upon the dynamic decisions that are made by the cognition model attached to the unit. So that gives you an overview of command processing and the order in which commands are processed. And I hope it's been helpful. So based on this, we are now going to talk about some other features associated with defining units and defining their composition. Thanks for watching, and thanks for using Flames.